Hello everyone, I'm together today at the offices of ACO AI with the co-founders, Mr. James Hare and Professor Carolyn Lam here in Singapore. And it's great to be here. Thanks for welcoming us this afternoon. And we just wanted to have a chat about ACO AI and how that can help ultimately patients with heart disease and patients with heart failure. So let me first start with you, Carolyn. I know that you are a professor at Duke NUS, and you're also working here at the Singapore Heart Center, and you have a very profound interest in heart failure. So could you tell us a little bit more where that comes from, why you're so interested in heart failure?
Well, heart failure is really the end common pathway of all heart diseases. So for example, now we're saving heart attacks really early, but patients end up having heart failure. The most important thing though is the landscape of heart failure is really changing now. We now have effective medicines, not just to treat heart failure, but to prevent heart failure. And it makes it all the more important that we detect it earlier and that we, I like the word democratize, that we really increase access to the simple tools required to make the diagnosis of heart failure.
Because heart failure is a very nasty heart disease, if you want. I've heard that mortality rates are quite high, so you don't want to get to that stage probably, or you want to try to prevent it as much as possible.
Exactly, and the point is that we now have medications. I mean, thanks to many excellent companies, we actually have medications to prevent heart failure. So all the more important to detect it early. And it's true, when I tell my patients you've got heart failure, they kind of go, oh, okay. And it doesn't carry the weight that, let's say we say you have kidney failure or even cancer. But at the end of the day, it is an organ failure, just like kidney failure, and its mortality is actually as bad as a lot of cancers. So it's really an important diagnosis not to miss and to give effective medications as soon as possible.
Right, that's great. And one of the interests I know you have is in HFpEF, or patients with heart failure and preserved ejection fraction, and you're participating to one of our trials with dapagliflozin. So why your interest in that specific subset of heart failure?
Well, first, it was very neglected for many years. So for a long time, everybody thought heart failure is pump failure, which means the heart gets big and it cannot pump. So that's systolic heart failure or heart failure reduced ejection fraction. And totally ignored half the heart failure population that has preserved ejection fraction, where the problem is not the pump, but almost, to simplify, the suction. You see, and it's so important, especially because it is becoming the dominant form of heart failure around the world, and it is a disease predominantly of women. So it,
Yeah, that's important. I can see why that is very important. Okay, great. So thanks for that. Maybe over to you, James. You're obviously the other co-founder of ACO AI, and how this came about? Because you come from another industry, as I heard. So how did you get involved in this company?
That's correct. I came from the online travel industry. My last company was one of the largest e-commerce providers in Europe, and I'd actually retired. I was frankly living the good life, kite surfing around the world, when I discovered the hard way how hard it is to find out about your heart health. I actually got a bad EKG reading and had to go in and get my heart imaged with an ultrasound. It's the doctor's first tool of choice. And what I discovered was this process of long waits for patients. It took me about a month to get my heart imaged. And then this process of expensive doctors in expensive dark rooms, tracing manually like a 5-year-old child the borders of a heart to come out with a result that sometimes is wrong. I ended up getting 2 different results from 2 different doctors. Fortunately, the one that said I was healthy was correct, and I'm here today. But that intrigued me, and I realized that there's a lot of opportunity for improvement, especially with the advances in AI technology and image recognition, and that here in Singapore we had the talent and the images to do the training that we needed to develop algorithms to automate this process and help people get control of their heart health.
Yours in defense of our cardiology system. Okay, it's true. It's true, but let me just tell you what it takes to learn to read an echocardiogram, just a normal patient journey. First of all, for doctors like us, we finish med school, we have to do general training, specialist training, and then further training to be able to just read the echo. Because although echocardiography is just ultrasound of the heart, it's so safe. It's a modality that, goodness, we point at fetuses, unborn fetuses. So it's very safe. But the problem is it's not in the hands of general practitioners or non-cardiologists because we need to learn to read it. And this is the part that James was saying is flawed. Why? It's highly manual. The process requires us sitting in front of the whole video, distinguishing which chamber of the heart we're looking at, which valve, which side, and then sort of distinguishing where the outline is so that we can trace it and measure it, and then comparing it to what's known of normal, not normal, to see whether anything's wrong. And in each of these stages, you can imagine human error, and it is up to 20%. For the same echo, two people can give up to 20% variability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's even worse is that I had, at the time, I was, one of these health freaks, right? I was every couple of months, I was checking my blood and doing this and watching what I eat. I knew everything about my body except for my heart. No clue about the thing that's frankly, someone of our demographics, most likely to, 1 in 3 people are going to die of cardiovascular disease. And it just amazed me, once I finally realized, hey, maybe I should find out more about my heart, how hard it was to actually know anything. And it's difficult because the whole process is very manual, very labor-intensive, and locked up within specialists. So our mission is to unlock that, to, as Carolyn said, democratize the whole process.
He's trying to get rid of my job.
Help.
And I think that's where probably both companies' missions or our visions kind of collide, because we want to do good for patients, we want to help patients with heart failure, and obviously we can treat them better and better, and we have more medications to do that. But we need to also help physicians and patients to get rightly diagnosed at the right time with the right help and the right tools. And I think that's where both of our solutions hopefully can help patients in the long term.
Yeah, it's incredibly important because much as we have a tool that we can put in everybody's hands to detect disease, you need to be able to do something about it. And so I think the partnership with AstraZeneca is very important. And some of these new blockbuster drugs, seriously, have taken the heart failure world by storm. So we need to get the medicines out to the right people, but we need to diagnose them first. Yeah.
And what's nice is the partnership can take place in multiple areas. We can sort of work on downstream activities, patient-centric activities to help automate, improve the amount of echoes that are done and improve people's knowledge about what's happening with their heart. But it can also take place upstream at the research level. When we look at where our echoes, where's the supply today, echoes are stored in these labs, basically in file cabinets, locked away from past studies, sitting there unused. No one wants to touch them because it's just too hard, too manual to actually go in and do the tracing all over again. And we want to automate that. We want to basically connect all these echoes, digitize them, structure them so that anytime anyone has any question at all that they want to interrogate that data on, they can come to us, use our platform, and access stuff, basically extract value from things that are sitting in dark file cabinets today.
Yeah, that's nice to hear, because then it brings value, across the value chain of how we think about medicines as well, both in the development, where we can work together in better diagnosing patients, but also in more commercialization, or when we try to bring solutions to patients. So back to heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, because that's not an easy one to diagnose, I hear. And could this solution also help diagnose better patients with preserved ejection fraction?
Absolutely, that is my passion. And that's one of the first projects that we are looking into and going into data sets of patients that exist already who have heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, and sort of trying to see if we can automate its diagnosis. Now, why is it so difficult? Because you'll have a heart that is pumping correctly, and that's what most people can just see. But it's so difficult to see is whether it's relaxing well. It requires different modalities like Doppler to be able to diagnose its diastolic function. And those things, untrained people just, they start to see stars, but it's actually something that can be automated. I can humbly admit now. The other thing is to remember heart failure symptoms and signs, unfortunately, are very non-specific, right? It's breathlessness, you get tired. I think a lot of people listening might go, ooh, a bit of swollen ankles. And especially in the elderly where you've got all kinds of things happening as well. So people really do need help to make the accurate diagnosis.
And when we think a bit further, could we then think about, because I know you were thinking about democratizing echocardiography, so do you see a world where maybe primary care physicians could use this type of technology to help them diagnose earlier in their office, outside of the hospital?
Yeah, you don't mind if I mean, that is
Please.
my dream.
Yeah.
That's really my dream. And that's because if you look at the world now, hardware is getting simpler and simpler, including for ultrasound. So now you can buy already on the market just a probe to be connected to one smartphone. Seriously, it's available now. The problem is if I give you a probe connected to your smartphone and say, point it at your hearts on the left side, I can even tell you which rib. What's the problem? You don't know whether it's normal or not.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the dumber the hardware, the more we need smart software. And that's where Echo AI comes in. So if we can equip generalists with that simple hardware, really smart software to help them make the accurate diagnosis, I think that will be golden. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about timelines. Is this still a bit of a big dream and still years to come, or are you guys getting concretely to a solution? Where are you in making this available for doctors?
We've already commercialized our research tools now, so we're already working both with pharmaceutical partners and hospital systems. And that's the irony of it is that we're working with systems now that they're at capacity in terms of echo. They cannot handle more echoes, and yet they see potential new treatments coming down the pipeline. And on one hand, they're happy, but on the other hand, they're scared. They can't process more people through the system. So they need these solutions, these automation tools. So yes, the research tools are commercialized now, and then we hope to be, in the next couple of months, submitting our FDA final submission, and then we'll pivot to the CE mark immediately after that.
Very good. So I know that you guys have a very clear vision about what your unique selling point, if you want, from where the state is today to where you want to bring it. Maybe we can close with that. What do you think is so unique about the solution you're building?
I mean, our mission is to automate the fight against cardiovascular disease. And when we first looked at this problem, we saw people who were looking at, little features, little tools that help, but not a solution. And what we want is, we want to go to doctors and pharma partners and present them with a complete solution that solves the problem.
So by that, if I may amplify, ours is the first fully automated platform. Literally taking a process that used to take me 30 minutes, 250 clicks, right, with the 20% variability, taking it down to 2 minutes, 1 click, and 0 variability, because it will read the same study the exact same way, right, as long as the algorithm is locked in. Now, that is a fully automated solution, meaning we don't even need to tag anything or ask the doctor to say which is the left or the right, or it recognizes and annotates everything. Furthermore, it also does all modalities, so not just 2D echo, but also Doppler modalities, which is critical for the diagnosis of diastolic function and heart failure preserved ejection fraction. And then finally, you can plug into a network that we've already formed, and it's a really cool network. It's kind of friends and family. We've come together because we all see that we need this, and it's networks that includes top echo core labs around the world. But what this immediately forms is a federated learning platform. So we can learn and validate in each other, and so it really, really escalates and accelerates the power of discovery. Yeah, so those are the unique.
Right. Let me close on that, because I think you use the word network, we use the word ecosystem a lot internally, and I think this is a great example where we try to accelerate change together for patients with heart failure. And I think no company on its own or no government on its own can do that by itself. It's such a difficult problem. So I think if we can come together across pharmaceutical companies, technology companies, governments, academic institutes, I think we can together accelerate change for heart failure patients. So thank you very much for your time today. It was very enlightening, and I really look forward to a great collaboration in the next couple of years. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.